Hello everyone, this is Sam over at the Foot Whisperer Reflexology Institute here today with another foot reading video for you. We've been posting a lot of technique videos, but we're going back to some of the foot reading stuff because so many of you have reached out, asked me to produce more of these videos, sent in pictures of your feet, and now we have more material to use. If you would like to be a part of the foot reading video series, you can always send your foot pictures to sam@footwhisperer.com. That is the personal email that I will answer, respond to, and also let you know when your video is posted. So definitely jump on board the bandwagon with the foot reading video series. And as a reminder, with all these videos, we are not trying to D, P, or T, diagnose, prescribe, or treat. Instead, we are always aiming to ACE, assess, coach, and educate based on reflexology theory. And without further ado, here is 3 more pictures of feet for your entertainment to help you understand the art and science of foot reading. Alrighty, so on to our first set of feet that we are going to be talking about today. Thank you, Kerry, for sending in your feet and letting us look at them during our foot reading video series. Here we have our first marker, which we've seen before in other videos, but definitely a common one to re-emphasize. We see that hardened, dried callus, not only on the outside of the big toes, but also starting on the inside of the balls of the feet. And that indicates a lot of rough, dry, fatigued tissue right at that occiput area and right in the kind of spinal between the shoulder blades area. So right as those rhomboids, mid-traps would insert into that kind of C1 to T5 area, all of that kind of center of the back tissue would have that callus tendency, that hardened, slightly dried, fatigued, exhausted tendency. And that is our first marker. Something to be aware of, no matter how much you shave those calluses, they will come back because they are a representation of something deeper. Okay. Marker number 2, we have a callus right in the center of what we would call vertical zone 2, horizontal zone 2. So what that means is horizontal zone 2 in the ball of the foot represents the chest lung area, but also it's the seat of the emotions in foot reading. Because it's in line with vertical zone 2, in line with that second toe, it is literally a 2-2 marker. It's all about feelings and emotions. When I see this, it really does take a turn towards that mental emotional aspect of the read. And here we see that callusing really, really present. But it is on the right foot, so it does have a past flavor to it. That gives us a total meaning of past emotions being calloused, a little bit more defensive, a little bit more guarded would be a great way to say it. All of those earth qualities, that kind of more protective nature to the emotions. But it is on the right foot. I can tell you that from the other picture that she sent that I wasn't able to feature in this video, that the callus did subside on the left foot. So it is definitely a past hardening that she is trying to shed, but has not been able to yet. So it is still a default mode, still in the body, definitely part of that right side shoulder tightness. That would be symptomology talk from that standpoint, but here we definitely have a very strong marker for that 2-2 emotional protectiveness. Okay. Third marker actually is more of a general observation. We don't have a specific marker to look at, but I would like you to observe how narrow the heels are versus how wide the ball of the foot is. On both feet, this is very true. And this is a very key constitutional marker to understand. Width is energy in the feet. So when something is wider, when something has more breadth to it, it indicates that there's more energy, more physical tissue in that area for that individual. And here we see the ball of the foot, that horizontal zone 2, all that chest, shoulder, but also emotional area of the feet has the most width. When we go down into vertical zone, or horizontal zone rather, 5, all of those low body reflexes, that sense of security and moving forward, we see a lack of width. So almost an instability, tendency to be unrooted, tendency to be a little bit all over the place, not really able to catch one's balance in proportion to the feelings that they're experiencing and the tension in that chest lung area. So just that general observation of how the foot is shaped. This is obviously a very long, fiery, dynamic foot. We have a lot of those tendencies in this triangular shape, but just notice how that width is either evenly or not so evenly distributed, and that can give you a really key indicator as far as someone's overall constitutional tendencies. Okay, now let's go on to Stephen. Stephen submitted not necessarily a complete picture of the feet, but we definitely have a lot to talk about with these feet, specifically in the toes. So we're going to focus on the toes with these pictures. Now, a lot of people will say that they have toenail fungus, but they don't have toenail fungus. It's a callousing, a hardening, a rigidity that's present in the toes, and a growth of that tissue. Here we can see more of that toenail fungus, and we'll talk about that later. But first, let's talk about the toes leaning. So the toes definitely have a very generous curve to them, and the toes represent everything in the head and neck space. And that is really what the curve indicates, is there's almost an overcurvature in the head and neck, which could lead to kind of general neck pain, but also a tendency for headaches, and as we can see by the nails, sinus issues. So let's talk about those nails. Okay, specifically, we're going to start with the left foot. So this fissure is not a pretty one, and definitely something that I don't like to see, but it is in vertical zone 3 in the toe. That's a little bit more advanced content. We're zooming into the actual nail and then zoning the individual nail itself. So definitely a little bit more advanced as far as theory goes, but we can see that that split is right in the center, which means it's vertical zone 3, influence of the upper digestive system, but also of one's career and actions. So the mental area, the toes, specifically the nail, has been split in terms of career. Physically, this also represents sinus congestion due to more acid reflux type symptoms because the stomach reflex is on the left foot. So we can have both meanings. I've confirmed with this individual that they do feel split in their career decisions. The words that they used were kind of waffling. They try to go into corporate America and then they bounce back to being kind of an independent business owner, and one, they make the money, but they're unsatisfied. The other, they don't make the money, but they're happier. And they kind of go back and forth throughout their life. So that split tendency as far as career and actions is definitely what this marker means. Now, healing that marker would require someone really coming to terms with that career and actions, that life purpose meaning in one's life to really fuse that nail back together. Okay, so that was a mouthful. But now let's look at the other toe. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of true fungus. It really looks like necrotic tissue. When you see a fungus, it's black, it's almost spidery, it's blotchy. It has, if you've ever seen like black mold, it looks like that, as opposed to kind of the opaque, calloused, raised toenails that you'll see a lot of people terming as fungus. This is what I'm talking about in terms of true toenail fungus. And whenever we see black in the nails, it's always kind of like a black cloud hovering over one's head. Here we have, again, zooming into the nail, we have horizontal zone 4 and vertical zone 2 if we wanted to grid it. And that would be feelings about one's relationship. Specifically, there are 2 dots there, if you can really see that. This individual does have 2 children that in the past have not always been on the straight and narrow. So something to consider when we look at both 2 markers side by side in terms of meaning 2 individuals, but also that more mental emotional slant of feelings in terms of relationships. Now, mentally and emotionally, we've covered, but physically, whenever we see something necrotic in the body, it represents necrosis in those tissues. So again, with the sinus issues, but also the nails represent all sensitive structures in the face, including the eyes and teeth. So definitely something to look at in terms of dental dysfunction and also other kind of prone to sinus infection eye issues. Okay. And last but not least, we have quite the treat for everybody. This is a perfect example of a normal foot. But What's very interesting is that this is the left foot, and I'm about to show you the right foot in a second, but I'd like you to really take a look at how the skin is clear. Yes, there's a lot of waving in the digestive system. Yes, we can see some tendencies for callousing, but overall, this foot is very blockish. It's a great earth constitutional foot, very sturdy, no excess swelling, good stuff present in this foot. And just the contrast that I'm about to show you is boggling, and definitely something to consider when we look at right versus left, both in terms of the right side, the right foot representing right side of the body, and the right side representing the past. Here we have the left side of the body and present, but let's look at that right foot. Bam. Okay, so this is not a before and after shot of any kind of manicure, pedicure, or even a treatment. These feet are taken photo-wise as is. When I saw this, I really just couldn't believe it. It's amazing, the contrast. Here on the right side, we see the dryness, we see heavy callousing, we see even more lining in the core reflexes, we see blotchy red spots in that lower digestive bladder area, as well as some really thick heel tissue. All of this dynamicism is so present and definitely not present on the other side. So when we look at right versus left in terms of physicality, this would indicate a lot of right side tiredness, a lot of right side guarded tissue, compensation patterns, and also a past history of being much more rigid than this individual is now. But what's even more fascinating is the mental emotional aspect. With this being on the right foot, there was so much happening in the past, so much fatigue, so much uncertainty, so much guarded and inflammatory tendencies that are just no longer present. I'd give this a timeline of about 2 months in the past. Definitely something more chronic long-term. The body doesn't produce this level of symptomology easily. So something really to look at. When we're looking at right versus left, this is the only thing that I want you to focus on with these pictures. It's so dramatic, the change between one foot to another. Most of the time, you're going to see evenness, but every once in a while, you see a set of feet where there is dramatic difference from right to left, and it's totally changing from past to present, from right side to left side physically. So a beautiful example of how that can occur kind of in the wild with everyday feet. So that is our last set of feet for this foot reading video. Thank you all so much for watching. Please continue to send in your foot pictures to sam@footwhisperer.com, and I will leave you with this final message.